Welcome to another episode of Casual Cinephilia, where enthusiastic amateurs talk very passionately about movies. I'm Ian.
I'm Lorian, and today we are talking about Pan's Labyrinth.
Which is an older film. It came out, in...
2007 or 8 or something like that?
Yeah... 2006.
2006.
So 15 years
Nice.
ago? 15 years ago. Wow, that's a long time ago.
I remember seeing this theatrically.
Really?
It must have been released theatrically later here because it doesn't feel like my parents to let me go see this movie in theaters at 16.
Yeah, I don't think I ever saw this movie in theaters.
I remember that I went to see it with Kelsey Glover, very specifically.
Huh.
Because she was the only friend that didn't mind subtitled movie that I was close with at the time. We were both like, this looks good. Let's go see that.
I don't have anything against subtitled movies.
Sure.
But subtitled movies are always hard for me because I just have this innate need to read. If something's on the screen, I have to read it. And so I spend the entire movie with my eyes focusing on the bottom fifth of the screen, reading the subtitles, and missing the visual contextual part of it. I do not have that problem with this movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of competing visuals to draw your attention.
I think that is understatement of the year. This film, this is art. This isn't just a movie. This is art. Is so beautiful to look at, and it's a masterpiece by Guillermo del Toro. In that you don't need to read to know what's going on in the movie. Like, you don't actually need to know what is being said. And if you know what they're saying, it makes it even better. But the directing of the actors, as well as the directing of the visual aspect of it, the cinematography, it tells a visual story throughout. And it's amazing how you don't necessarily need to know what's being said to know exactly what's being said. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's a very well done movie.
Yeah.
It's very pretty.
Very.
It's also
pretty.
very, very violent and graphic and gory.
Yeah, I totally forgot that there's a point where a person's face gets caved in by a bottle. Like,
on screen. Like,
on
full
screen.
View.
Like, you see his nose cave in, and like there's just a hole where his face used to be.
Yeah, it's a brutal movie.
Yeah.
It's very purposefully brutal. It is told in post-Civil War Spain, which is a notoriously violent and brutal point in history, the Spanish Civil War and the aftermath.
Yeah. It was set in 1944 as well, so it's post-Civil War, mid-World War II.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is just...
His stuff focuses a lot on that point in history, and is always appropriately violent for the era, and doesn't pull its punches on showing you all of it.
Yeah. No, Guillermo del Toro, he's... I think in his own league when it comes to visual aesthetic.
Sure.
Like, I can't think of another director that just gets fantasy.
Right.
You
Specifically, monster fantasy.
Yes. Maybe pre-Hobbit Peter Jackson.
But downgraded.
I don't. When he got money, he lost his aesthetic touch. I thought when he got budget,
I don't know.
I, I, yeah, I guess that's a debate for another time because I guess The
Indeed.
Hobbit is a more uplifting fantasy as opposed to Lord of the Rings being a dark fantasy,
Hmm.
whereas Pan's Labyrinth is pitch black fantasy. Like it's can you have a darker than dark fantasy? Like if you can, that's what Pan's Labyrinth is.
Well, Pan's Labyrinth, read one way, at least, is a story about a little girl whose life becomes so shit that she escapes into fantasy to her death.
Yeah.
So, oh, spoiler alert. It's old, so
Yeah,
sorry.
if you haven't watched this one yet, why are you watching a review podcast on a movie that's come out 15 years ago? No, but like I this is one of the most beautiful films, but is also one of the most depressing films I've watched in a long time. Like things just go from worst to worse for the main character. What? Ophelia? Yeah, Ophelia.
Yeah.
Like it just goes from bad to
I
worse.
was 16. I had to have because I took Spanish at the end of my high school career and my name doesn't translate. They make us choose Spanish names in every foreign language class I've taken. They make us choose
Hmm.
a name in that language, which, like, if I go to Spain, they're calling me Lorian. What is that? But anyway, I had to choose a name because my name doesn't translate, and I went by Ophelia because of this movie.
Oh God.
So I had to have seen it at 16.
Would you like to know what my Spanish name was?
Yes.
Octavio.
Oh no. Terrible. It's terrible for you. If your name is Octavio out there, it's a lovely name, but for Ian, is a bad fit.
Well, it's because Ian doesn't translate. Well, technically Juan. Juan, because Ian is John and John
Sure.
is Juan. But I didn't want Juan. I wanted Octavio.
I just wanted Lorian, but they wouldn't let me use it.
Oh, man. So, yeah, you must have, because Ophelia is a very unique name.
It pops up in other notable pop culture, but
Oh, one other really important part of this movie, Doug Jones.
Doug Jones. Doug Jones in two roles.
Two incredibly creepy roles.
Yes. Doug
He,
Jones, if you don't know, is the actor you've all seen. You just don't recognize his face because he does a lot of work under masks and prosthetics. He plays the fawn and the pale man in this movie.
yeah, he is amazing. And he's pretty much been in everything that has ever had a monster. Like ever. Like he's he
An
is
elegant monster is Doug Jones.
yes. If you've seen other Guillermo del Toro movies like Hellboy, he's Abe Sapien.
Sleepy Shape of Water, he's the fish man. He was, if you're a Buffy fan, he played the gentleman. If you're that movie Legion that came out, he's the ice cream man with the freaky limbs.
Yep.
And
Uh,
there's so many of them.
he's actually in the new Star Trek. I didn't know that. He's
Yeah, he's
Commander Saru.
uh-huh. He's oh god, I lost it. Oh, he's Billy Butcherson in Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, forgot
Um,
about that.
he's just been everywhere. You
Uh,
do know him. You
you,
just might not show his face.
yeah. I'm looking at his IMDb. There's a couple movies that are in post production or pre production right now,
Mm.
and one looks very interesting. He's playing a character called Count Orlok in the Nosferatu
Hmm.
film.
Hmm.
That could be
feel like I've
interesting.
feel like I've seen stills of that. I don't know where though.
I'll send a picture to you. It looks good because it's based off of the original Nosferatu silent film,
Yeah.
and the
Yep.
makeup looks amazing.
It's wild.
Ugh,
I have seen stills of that though. That's
yeah.
crazy.
But Doug Jones, he's awesome. His
Doug
character, the Fawn, in this
Jones.
is so unique
Mm.
in its portrayal because I don't because Pan's Labyrinth is, I feel, a very accurate portrayal of fantasy creatures. You know,
Sure.
and I say accurate in that in the original fairy tales, they're not good. Like, their fairy tales were originally intended to teach a lesson.
Sure.
And
It's the
so,
monsters following old school Fey rules
yeah, exactly.
instead of being pure evil or pure good. They've
Exactly.
got their own thing going on.
Yeah, never trust a fae. never
Yeah,
deal. Never
the fun
deal with
is
a fae.
very, very Fey.
Yeah.
You want to believe him and you want to trust him, but there's always a little edge of something is very off here.
Yeah. Which makes me question the fantasy of it. Oh, hello, puppy.
Sure.
Like, because when I know she's reading a fairy tale, and that's where
Hmm.
these aspects come from, but
Potentially.
potentially, but the depictions of the fae, so
Hmm.
the little fairies
Uh-huh.
and the fawn are
Uh-huh.
very old school fae,
Yes.
which you would think if someone's trying to escape, it would be a much more fantastical, like, fairy tale fairy, where, like, the
Maybe.
fairy,
I
like, her
mean,
initial reaction, not reaction, her initial viewing of the fairy is a disgusting winged insect. And it's not until later that it transforms into a winged fairy, you know? And so it's just interesting that it's her imagination of it is the darker thing. And so it makes me, at least, question whether or not that actually was real or not for
which
her.
is part of the fun of the film is that you could interpret it several different ways.
Yeah.
Uh, I always think of it as when you're she's a fairly she's in a bad spot, and people in a bad spot don't often dare to dream all the way.
Yeah, that's true.
So I feel like maybe her fantasy is only allowing her to reach as far as she can see justified. I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say, though.
No, I get that. Yeah.
But no, there's definitely another reading in which the fantasy elements are real
But
and
then,
also just happen to be happening.
yeah. But then you get the scene where she's talking to the fawn,
Uh-huh.
and the stepfather, the colonel or general or whatever,
Captain, I
captain,
think.
thank you, sees her talking to the fawn, but doesn't see the
Hmm.
fawn, and is like,
Right.
okay, so that's a figment of her imagination. But then you think that's something a
Or
fae can do,
right.
you know? It's like, damn it. Like, the fae
Yeah,
are only seen by those who they want to be seen by.
right.
Ugh. Ugh. What
Yeah,
this
it's definitely not an easy movie to watch either because the subject matter is brutal or because the story is not giving you answers. Like there's no simple answer. Even at the end of the film, you have to decide for yourself how you want to have viewed it,
Yeah.
which I love. As discussed last week or last episode in Brazil, the vibe of the ending is more clear cut in Brazil than in this film, but it has a similar vibe of how do you want to see this?
Yeah. No, definitely. Well, and I think I enjoy it so much in that it's such a untreaded track because it takes a lot of courage as a filmmaker to go the unhappy route.
Sure.
We kind of discussed it a little bit with Brazil on how the studio kind of forced it into a happy ending, you
Right.
know. And so not only was Guillermo del Toro like pushing for that sad ending, possible sad ending, but the studio let him do it too.
It's also not an American film, though, and other countries have different sensibilities.
Well, technically Brazil isn't either.
Sure. I mean, it was partially produced by the American studio system, though.
Okay, that's fair.
Like, I don't think Pan's Labyrinth was. We just got a release here because people like the director.
That's fair. Was this before Hellboy or after?
I'm not sure.
Uh,
Let's see.
Pull it up real quick. Uh,
After. Hellboy was 2004.
gotcha.
Immediately after.
Well, that makes sense. I would after Hellboy is such a good movie.
Mm,
Hellboy
it is.
2 is really good though.
Yep.
I always forget that Guillermo del Toro wrote the screenplay for The Hobbit.
Well, he wrote a version of it.
Yeah,
I
he's
don't know that that's. I don't know how close that is to the shooting script they used.
probably not very close. He's still credited for the 3 movies, but
Yeah. Yeah. He was
still.
supposed to be at the helm of them all.
Ugh,
I really want to see that trilogy still, or Hair, or whatever it was supposed to be at that point.
I
It
think
changed so much.
yeah, I think he was pushing for 2 movies,
Yeah, I think you're right.
which I think would have felt a lot better. But
Yeah, I agree. I don't dislike. Okay, I'll be careful with this one. I don't dislike the extended edition of Peter Jackson's Hobbit trilogy.
I still need to watch that. I have yet to watch the extended editions.
The extended edition at least allows you to understand the things he was trying to do.
Gotcha.
I don't think that they were necessary, all the like extra Silmarillion stuff he pushed into the story. I don't think it was needed, but in the extended editions, at least you get to see what he was trying for,
Mm-hmm.
and that does make a lot of difference in how the movies read.
Gotcha.
But I really wish we could have seen Guillermo del Toro's take. I don't I don't know that it was the best pairing because Guillermo del Toro has a very dark sensibility and The Hobbit is the lighter of the stories.
Yeah, but
But
but the way that Peter Jackson made The Hobbit is as a prequel to The Lord of the Rings.
right.
Whereas
Yes.
the original authoring of the books, J.R.R. Tolkien, made The Hobbit as a complete, like, separate entity, and then was like, oh, this is an interesting world that I've created, and then
Right.
made Lord of the Rings in that world. It wasn't a sequel or anything. It just, he enjoyed the world he had created with The Hobbit while he was writing it literally in letters while he was in World War One back to his son. And when he came back, he was like, I want to make, a essentially a protest against war in
Right.
book form. And he
Believe me,
chose
I know.
yeah, and he chose Middle Earth essentially to tell that story, that
Right.
anti-industrialization story.
Right.
And I think my personal opinion is that Guillermo del Toro would have taken that feel of The Lord of the Rings and translated it to The Hobbit to make it a cohesive prequel story.
Sure.
Whereas I think Peter Jackson was kind of torn between whether he wanted to do a prequel or have it be that lighthearted, its own thing
Which is why
story.
it's sucks because he didn't even want to be involved in the first place, and now he
Yeah.
gets a bunch of crap for what he ended up doing when he had to be.
Yeah. Oh man. Just to continue on down the rabbit hole just for a little bit longer, watching
Okay.
the behind the scenes of The Hobbit and
Hmm.
watching the behind the scenes of Lord of the Rings, it's two different people. The Peter Jackson in each one of those is two different people. Like, he looks so defeated in The
He's
Hobbit.
doing a job in The Hobbit. In Lord
Yeah.
of the Rings, he's doing the project he's been building to his whole life, and in The Hobbit, he's doing a job he was hired for.
Yeah. It's so sad. Anyways, release the Guillermo cut. The Del Toro cut.
There's so much more work to be done. Just go back and remake it. Can Del Toro get involved in this Amazon show, please?
I'm actually curious who's show heading it.
I don't know yet. I haven't really looked much into it.
Okay. Being developed by J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay. Producers, them. It's production location, New Zealand. Duh.
Sure.
I don't recognize any of the producers.
That could be a good thing.
Yeah.
Could be a bad thing.
I'm not recognizing any of the actors in it either.
Great.
Which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. Who's Morpheus Clark is Galadriel? Who's Morpheus Clark? Oh, this is such a deep rabbit hole.
Come back, Ian.
Interesting. No, she could play a young Galadriel. So is this like prequel? Like,
This is like Age of Numenor, isn't it? This is like old Tolkien lore. I don't remember when exactly they're setting it, but I know it's not in the timeline of Lord of the Rings.
So it's set in the Second Age of Middle-earth, thousands of years before the events of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. The series follows an ensemble cast of characters as they confront the re-emergence of evil in Middle-earth.
Yes.
Gotcha. So it definitely sounds like the Numenorians and all that jazz.
All that jazz. No one's ever sung that song about Lord of the Rings before in the history of humans.
Celebrimbor abandoned them and all that jazz. Like, oh god. All right, back from the rabbit hole. Pan's Labyrinth. There is one moment. If I have to critique the movie, I'm going to nitpick.
Okay.
There is one scene that bugged me from a filmmaking point of view, and it's solely because it came out in 2006, and they didn't have the ability to make it look good.
Okay.
When the rebels detonate a bomb underneath the train tracks, the explosion that you see in the distance as the real attack is the fakest looking plume of fire I have ever seen. It looks like something you could get from a stock photo. They just kind of pasted it into the distance. But that's solely because this movie came out in 2006. And
I mean, partially. There's also allowances you have to make in mass consumed art to account for the audience's expectations.
True.
You know, like, I had to put a white wedding dress in Fiddler on the Roof whenever I'm costuming that, because people don't understand it's a wedding without a white wedding dress, oftentimes.
That is true.
So a fiery explosion cues to people, oh, something was blown up. Whereas smoke, they might have just been like, is something on fire?
No, it wasn't that there was a big ball of fire that bugged me. It was how
Just
the
that
big
it's
ball
not
of fire
well done.
looked. Yes.
Okay,
I'm
sure.
all about the visual contextual clues of big ball of fire means explosion. Like, I get that. I was fully aware that what they were trying to portray to me was that there was an explosion.
Clearly.
But the other half of my brain
You
was
just
like,
don't like the
ooh,
way that it's done. That didn't
exactly.
ping to me. I don't know why.
Hmm?
That didn't ping to me. I don't know why.
Huh.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm nitpicky with that kind of stuff. With
Yeah.
that.
I don't tend to critique the CG in a movie that is so old. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
My brain slides right over it.
that's fair. Though, that being said, with the graphics being subpar to what I expected from the quality of film that it was,
Sure. Sure.
the thing that was and still is so far above my expectations is the CG used for Doug Jones's characters. Because
Well,
they're
a large
practical,
portion that is practical, right?
yes, but the legs aren't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well,
you can't tell.
the legs are practical, but they have removed his legs, which are in green screen spandex.
Exactly. And it's most notable with the Pale Man
Yeah, because
because
he's
he's
got
got
like
little twig
literal bones.
legs. Yeah. And you can't tell. Like
Yeah, they did a really good job.
it's just so seamless in its erasure of Doug Jones's legs and the painting
Get
of
rid of
back
those
in
legs.
of the background. Like
Yeah,
like the process of painting someone out of a scene is so much more arduous than people realize.
right.
Like, it's getting easier and easier as technology gets better and better. But this came out in 2006. None of this
Right.
technology existed yet. So someone went in there and frame by frame
Yep.
removed Doug Jones's legs and painted back in the background. And that is nuts. That is so cool. Because it's flawless. It's absolutely flawless.
Right.
Ugh. And like even the full CG characters, so like the fairies and the
Right.
bug,
Mm-hmm.
they look great. And
Yeah,
I think
the frog is getting a little rough, but he's mostly practical with CG motion, I believe.
yes.
Like I think there is a large frog, but then when he's doing a lot of expressive work, then it's CG, and that's getting a little rough.
Yeah. But it still looks fantastical.
Yeah, it's
Like-
still believable as a fantasy frog.
Exactly. Which I always forget. I've seen this movie so many times. Watching it again, I always forget that she literally makes the frog throw itself up inside
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
You're just like,
Reaches into its stomach lining that's now hanging out on the ground to get the key.
Ugh. So gross. Oh man. Oh, and the mandrake scene always creeps me out so bad. It's
Which
so
one?
the
The first one
all of
or
it.
the last one?
Every scene with the mandrake just creeps me out. Ugh. Man.
I've heard that cited as like proof the fantasy is real that he sees the mandrake root, but like, do people not realize how many root plants there are?
Yeah.
Like, that could have been anything that's really there. Anything. Did
Yeah.
you never pretend something was something magical when you were a kid?
It's such a good movie. Like I always forget about this movie, and it's criminal. But
Sure.
this is it has to be in my at least top 10 all-time best movies. And I always forget to list it because I don't know why. I don't know why. I always forget to list it. But it's so good.
Yes, it
It's
is.
art.
It's definitely one of my top 5.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. I do like that the maid lady, what is it? Mercedes, that she sort of gets a happy ending.
Yeah.
Like
As
at
happy
least
as anyone
someone.
can.
Yeah. Oh, that scene though. Vindication. I love it. Please
The one where
tell
she
my son the
slices- Oh, yes.
the exact moment
Uh-huh.
I died. It's like, he's not even going to know your name. Bam! It's like, oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Well,
Oh, and then the
that-
cheek. Ugh.
yeah. Captain Vidal is like one of the most evil characters in cinema.
Yeah.
He's just so evil.
So evil.
Just a bad, bad dude.
And like,
In a
that's
very human way.
that's
which
why
is
he's so evil.
Scarier.
It's
Right.
because he doesn't do anything outlandishly evil. He just does
Right.
very human evil things.
Yeah.
Thing-
I watched the show Supernatural. And I can rock through that show without a problem, but there are 2 episodes that have real humans as the villains, and I'm like, fuck, I hate these episodes. They're so much scarier than the rest of the show.
Yeah.
They're so much scarier when it's like a very frameable instance. Like, this could happen.
Yeah.
Do I think a vampire nest is going to come out of the woodworks in my town and start murdering people? Not really. No, not really. Do I think it's possible that hillbillies are kidnapping people out in the middle of nowhere and hunting them for sport on their property? I've heard stories of worse.
I grew up in Georgetown. That's
Right.
possible.
Yeah. Kind of, yes.
Oh, man.
And he's that kind of scary. He's the kind
Yeah.
of scary that you can... He's the reason that everyone thinks Umbridge is worse than Voldemort, which you'll understand the reference to soon.
So,
Because it's a real villain.
yeah.
It's a villain you've experienced in your own life.
Yeah. And the actor who plays him is just so
Mhm.
calm
All of the
and
actors in this
menacing.
movie were
Yeah.
really well cast.
Yeah.
The Doctor is really, really good. Everyone.
Yeah. There isn't a person who doesn't give it their all in this movie.
Even the child playing Ophelia was very good.
You want to know something ridiculous to make you feel
Yeah.
old?
No. Yes.
She's 27 now.
Well, I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
If we were 16 when this came out, she couldn't have been more than like 12. That doesn't make me feel that old. Because
Well,
she's
then-
not a small child in
That's
this.
true. That's true. But you are old, by the way.
I know.
Way
But
older
that
than
doesn't
me.
make it. Yeah, like 26 days or something.
Yep. You're ancient. Ancient.
Practically dead.
Go see this movie if you haven't. First off, why are you listening to this if you haven't? But if you haven't,
It's too late now, but don't do that. I don't know where this is. I don't know that it's streaming anywhere.
uh,
I didn't do
How did-
appropriate research.
how did I watch it? I don't remember how I watched it.
Oh my god, Ian's lost his mind. Well, are you part of my Google Family Library? Because I
Yeah.
own it. What?
I don't
Did
think
you
I.
just say yet? Did you just yell at me in German?
Maybe. How did I watch
Yeah,
this?
it doesn't appear to be streaming anywhere.
Netflix.
Did you steal my DVD? Is
No,
it
it's on Netflix. Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Really?
That's how I watched it.
How interesting. Great, it's on Netflix. Go watch it. Google lied to me.
Niet!
Seriously, what it sounded like.
Oh, man. Yeah, go watch this movie. If you haven't watched it in a while, make sure you're in the mood for depression. But
Get ready to get sad.
it is so worth it. It's so good.
Yeah, it's a very pretty, poignant movie.
Yes. Do you have any final thoughts on Pan's Labyrinth?
Just that the mom does not get enough credit for hand sewing that beautiful green dress that Ophelia immediately destroys.
I forgot that she handmade it. I forgot.
Well,
It is a great dress that almost immediately gets destroyed.
immediately. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, my final thought is Guillermo del Toro is going to go down as one of history's greatest filmmakers. Like, he's going to be remembered for his films for the rest of the time that films are remembered. Because just everything that he makes, whether it's a passion project of his own, like Pan's Labyrinth, or him making a rendition of something that's already been made, like Hellboy, he just puts such a unique flair onto it and such passion behind it that it's art. It transcends movie. It transcends film. It is art. And I just love every movie that he makes. Even when it's about a lady fucking a fish. Like, it's still beautiful, you know?
Sure.
Like, the movie itself is still beautiful.
Right.
I don't know. I just love Guillermo del Toro. Plus, he's such a nerd. Like, the guy himself is an absolute nerd. And I love it.
Devastatingly nerdy. Lives in a horror museum, essentially.
Yeah.
Nerd.
Absolute nerd. So, what movie are we watching next?
Our next movie is going to be Raya and the Last Dragon.
I'm really excited about that. I'm not excited about forking over $30 to watch it, but I think I'm willing to see it. I think this as frustrating as it is, this premium paywall, I think everything that I've heard so far of this movie is that it's worth it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't want to encourage Disney to keep doing this, but I've heard that it's worth it. So I have a feeling
arrive at the dragon in time. We'll see.
We'll see. But yeah, so look forward to Raya and the Last Dragon next episode.
You don't want to pay $30? Try getting a band of your friends together.
Yeah,
and share an account.
Woo woo!
Share the cost. Share an account.
Share the love. All right, so I think it's time to thank our patrons.
Yeah, Jenny, Jake, Pam, and Graham.
Jenny, Jake, Pam, and Graham. Thank you guys so much for making this possible for us.
You're awesome.
Yes. And with that, this has been another episode of the Casual Cinephilia. What am I saying? My brain just stopped working. Wow. Oh my god.
You really threw a wrench in your spoke there with that the.
Yeah. Okay. Now my brain's just like, I don't even know what our outro is.
It was that, but without the the.
Without the the in the middle? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This has been another episode of Casual Cinephilia. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Hey, I did it.